Jai Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya, Jaya Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Prabhupada, Jaya Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Prabhupada, Jaya Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Prabhupada, Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Jaya 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 Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Shri Prabhupada. Reading from Prabhupada Lilamrita, chapter entitled Swami's Departure. Most of the devotees had to remain in San Francisco hoping for a chance to visit Swamiji. From the few who knew firsthand, they heard about Swamiji's plans to leave for India, perhaps never to return. It was painful to hear. His going almost to death, but then returning by Krishna's grace and rejoining them in San Francisco, yet being unable to stay with them as before. And now his plans of going to India, maybe forever, these activities intensified their concern and love for him. Devotees worried, speculating on whether they could carry on without Swamiji. One devotee suggested that perhaps one of Swamiji's godbrothers should come to America and fill in for Swamiji. And if the worst happened, take over the leadership of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. When the suggestion reached Prabhupada, he considered it without immediately replying. Mukunda, I was sitting alone with Swamiji in his room, and he was very grave and silent. His eyes were closed. Then suddenly tears began flowing from his eyes, and he said in a choked voice, "My spiritual master was no ordinary spiritual master." Then he paused for some time, and wiping the tears from his cheeks, he said in an even more choked voice, "He saved me." At that point, I began to understand the meaning of spiritual master and dropped all consideration of ever replacing Swamiji. After 2 days, Prabhupada said he would not call any of his godbrothers to come and take care of his disciples. He said, if this person speaks just one word different from what I am speaking, then there will be great confusion among you. Actually, he said the idea was an insult to the spiritual master. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरदारी गोपी जन वल्लभा जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरदारी यशोदानंदन भ्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन भ्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन भ्रज यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय श्री श्री राधा गिरिधारी की श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी की श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय श्री प्रभुपाद की जय निताय गौ ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय 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 नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैति Reading from the 5th canto, chapter 1, text 6. Might not be a real meter to this, so we'll just read it one time and then we'll go to the word-for-word translation. Yarhivavaharajan Sarajaputra Priyavrataha Paramabhagavato Naradasya Charanope Shevaya Jasavagata Paramatma Sattvato Brahma Satrena Dikshishyamano Vanitala Paripalanayat Nat Pravara Guna Ganikanta Bhajanataya Swapitro Pamatrito Bhagavati Vasudeva Eva Vyavadhana Samadhi Yogena Samaveshita Sakalakar Karaka Kriya Kalapo Naivabhyanantad Yadyapitad Apratyamnavyam Tad Adhikarana Atmanonyasmad Asatopi Parabhavam Anvikshamana. Go to the word-for-word translation, unless anyone would like to. Okay. Yarhi, because, Vava, ha, indeed, Rajan, O king, Saha, he, Rajaputra, the prince, Priyavrata, Priyavrata, Parama, supreme, Bhagavata, devotee, Naradasya, of Narada, Charana, the lotus feet, Upashevaya, by serving, Anjasa, quickly, Avagata, became aware of, Paramartha, transcendental subject matter, Satattva, with all knowable facts, Brahma Satrena, by continuous discussion of the Supreme, Dikshishyamanaha, desiring to fully dedicate himself, Avanitala, the surface of the globe, Paripalanaya, to rule over, Amnata, directed in the revealed scriptures, Pravara, highest, Guna, of qualities, Gana, the sum total, Ekanta, without deviation, Bhajanataya, because of his possessing, Svapitra, by his father, Upamanitrita, being asked, Bhagavati, in the Supreme Personality of God, Vasudeve, the all-pervading Lord, Eva, certainly, avyavadhana, absorption, samaveshita, completely dedicated. Oh, samadhi. Samaveshita, completely dedicated. Sakala, all. Karaka, senses. Kriya Kalapaha, whose total activities, na, not, eva, thus, abhyanandat, welcome, yadyapi, although, tat, that, apratyam natavyam, not to be rejected for any reason. Tat adhikarane, in occupying that post. Atmanaha, of himself. Anyasma, by other engagements. Asataha, material. Api, certainly. Parabhavam, deterioration. Anvikshamanaha, foreseeing. Here the translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravindra Bhaktivedanta Swami, Prabhupada. Sukadev Goswami continued, my dear king, Prince Priyavrata was a great devotee because he sought the lotus feet of Narada, his spiritual master, and thus achieved the highest perfection in transcendental knowledge. With advanced knowledge, he always engaged in discussing spiritual subjects and did not divert his attention to anything else. The prince's father then asked him to take charge of ruling the world. He tried to convince Priyavrata that this was his duty as indicated in the revealed scriptures. Prince Priyavrata, however, was continuously practicing bhakti yoga by constantly remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thus engaging all his senses in the service of the Lord. Therefore, although the order of his spiritual master could not be rejected, the prince did not welcome it. Thus, he very conscientiously raised the question of whether he might be diverted from devotional service by accepting the responsibility of ruling over the world. Purport. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung Chariya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Paiche Keva. Without serving the lotus feet of a pure Vaishnava or spiritual master, no one has ever attained perfect liberation from material bondage. Prince Priyavrata regularly served the lotus feet of Narada, and thus the prince perfectly understood transcendental subjects in truth, Satattva. The word Satattva means Priyavrata knew all the facts about the spirit soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the relationship between the spirit soul and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he also knew all about this material world and the relationship of the spirit soul and the Supreme Lord within the material world. Thus, the prince decided to engage himself only in rendering service to the Lord. When Priyavrata's father Swayambhuva Manu requested him to accept the responsibility of ruling over the world, he did not welcome the suggestion. This is the symptom of a great liberated devotee. Even though engaged in worldly affairs, he does not take pleasure in them, but remains always absorbed in the Lord's service. While thus serving the Lord, he deals externally with worldly affairs without being affected. For example, although he has no attraction for his children, he cares for them and educates them to become devotees. Similarly, he speaks to his wife with affectionate words, but he is not attached to her. By rendering devotional service, a devotee acquires all the good qualities of the Supreme Lord. Lord Krishna has 16,000 wives, all of them very beautiful. And although he dealt with each of them as a beloved husband, he was not attracted or attached to any of them. In the same way, although a devotee may enter family life and act very affectionately towards his wife and children, He is never attached to these activities. This verse states that by serving the lotus feet of the spiritual master, Prince Priyavrata very soon attained the perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness. This is the only way to advance in spiritual life, as stated in the Vedas. Yasya deve parabhaktir yata deve tata guru tasyeti kadita hiyata prakashante mahatmana. If one has unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord and the spiritual master, the essence of all Vedic knowledge is revealed to him. Svetasvatara Upanishad 6.23. A devotee always thinks of the Lord continuously while chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. The words Krishna and Hare immediately remind him of all the Lord's activities. Since his entire life is engaged in the service of the Lord, a devotee cannot forget the Lord at any time, just as an ordinary man always engages his mind in material activities. A devotee always engages his mind in spiritual activities, that is called Brahma Sattva, or meditating upon the Supreme Lord always. Prince Priyavrata was perfectly initiated into this practice by Sri Nara. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnava Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Shra He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Name Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prasharni Nirvishishta Shunyavadi Pashta Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Guru Dinatarina Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishvara. Hare Krishna. So today we continue discussing the pastimes of Prince Priyavrata at that time, before he became king. So we understand that the last canto ended with the Prachetas going back to the spiritual world. And there was a problem because there wasn't a suitably qualified king. The fourth chapter started describing the children of Manu. So he had two sons, Uttanapad and Priyavrata. Uttanapad was the youngest son because Priyavrata had gone to the forest to take up the spiritual path. So Uttanapad became the king. And we discussed his lineage. Now there was a need for another suitably qualified king. So his father Manu went to request Priyavrata to take up this position. So Parikshit Maharaj was, as Sukadev Goswami was speaking, Parikshit Maharaj was asking in the beginning, or towards the end, the fourth canto, he says, you know, we understand that earlier you told me that Prince Priyavrata, he became a renunciate, and now you're telling me he took up the position of a king and was ruling the kingdom. So how did this happen? Because from what you tell me, King Priyavrata, he was a self-satisfied, he was an Atmaram Bhakta. So how did he actually give that up? And how could he give up his devotional service to enjoy household life? How is it possible for such a devotee to actually become attached to family, to his wife, to his kingdom? So then Sukadev Goswami explains in the previous verses that actually for a devotee there are no obstacles. Those who are attached to, always completely absorbed in the thoughts of Krishna and always serving Krishna's lotus feet. The previous verse described one who's attached to the nectarian honey of the Lord's lotus feet and whose mind is always absorbed in his glories. He'll never give up his position of being a great devotee, even though he is outwardly looks like he's attached to his family, his wife, and his kingdom. So here, this next verse describes how King or Prince Priyavrata at that time was absorbed. How did this absorption come about? So we understand that it's described here that he was a great devotee. And why was he a great devotee? How did he come to the stage of absorption? Because he sought the lotus feet of Narada Muni. And he was serving him, he was constantly, the word used is, Priyavrata regularly served the lotus feet of Narada. So we understand Narada Muni is the ideal spiritual master. The name Narada is very meaningful. Narada means one who can give. Nara means Narayan, Da means Dadati, one who can give Narayan. Prabhupada says the immediate spiritual master is a direct representative of Narada Muni. So we can see this absorption begins with surrender to a spiritual master. It's described that there's no way Narottam Das Thakur's song that Prabhupada quotes, Chariya Vaishnava Seva, Nishtara Parichekeva. Without serving the lotus feet of a spiritual master, pure devotee of the Lord, there is no way for us to practice devotional service. So we understand that in the nectar of devotion, the first 10 instructions, they are the essence. Out of that, the first 5 speak about the spiritual master. And out of the 5, the first 3 are the most important. Does anyone remember the first? It begins with Ado Guru Padashreya, beginning surrendering to the lotus feet of the spiritual master. That's the beginning of devotional service. The second is Shri Krishna Dikshadi Sikshana. Taking shelter and then taking initiation, spiritual initiation from the spiritual master. And not just taking initiation, but accepting instructions. Shri Krishna Dikshadi Sikshana. If we're not taking instructions, if we're not taking Diksha, then the initiation is not complete. Because then there are 2 parts to it. You take initiation, and we take initiation because we want to receive instruction, spiritual instruction. And the third is Vishrambena Guru Seva, to obey the spiritual master's instructions with faith and devotion. These first 3 things are the most important as given an act of devotion. So here we see Priyavrata. From the beginning, he took shelter of Narada Muni. And he took shelter of his lotus feet. We understand that taking shelter of the lotus feet means, serving the lotus feet of the spiritual master means not, well, you can literally serve the lotus feet of the spiritual master. You can wash his feet. You can take that, put the charanamrit upon your head. You can massage his feet. You can do so many things. But how do you constantly do that? You can't, Priyavrata was constantly doing that. So you can't constantly be spiritual master has to walk, he has to go places, he can't keep holding on to his. So the understanding is that we serve his instruction. And we serve his instructions constantly. And so by following these instructions, what happens is he receives perfect knowledge. It's described here that he achieved the highest perfection in transcendental knowledge. And again, we can understand how to get this knowledge. This knowledge is not received through our own ability. We may attend many different lectures, we may read by ourselves, we read different commentaries, we may do Bhakti Sastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, which is good, but that knowledge, this is revealed knowledge. This is not knowledge that we get just by reading. So this knowledge is revealed through the service of the spiritual master. Here, this knowledge is in Bhagavad Gita, it's called Rahasyam, the secret. And the secret is not revealed generally to everyone and everyone. Krishna says, Naham prakashya sarvasya yogamaya samamita. He chooses the right to reveal himself. The Prabhupada quotes the verse here from Shvetashvara Upanishad, Yasya Devi Parabhakti, Yata Devi Tata Guru, Tasyeti Karitahi Prakashanti Mahatmanaha. So this knowledge is not something that we can get ourselves. This knowledge is revealed when we have implicit faith in the spiritual master, at the same time in Krishna, then it's called Prakash. It's revealed in our heart. It's not something that we can just read. We can read, and we should read, but that realization will only come if we serve the Spirit. Then we're reading, and every time we're reading, we get new and new realization. Prabhupada asked one devotee one time, how many times have you read Bhagavad Gita? He said, oh, I've read 30 times. Prabhupada said, you can read for lifetimes and you'll keep getting new and new realization if you serve the lotus feet. It's many, there's this, it's described, Lord Shiva, he describes Aham Veti, Sukho Veti, Vyasa Veti, Na Veti Va, Bhakta Bhagavatam Grahayam, Na Buddhaya Natika. He says, Aham Veti, I know Bhagavatam. Sukadev Goswami knows Bhagavatam. Vyasadev may or may not know Bhagavatam. But he says only Bhakta Bhagavatam Grahayam, only by hearing from the pure devotee, unless by serving the pure devotee, then you can understand Bhagavatam. Otherwise, na buddhaya nachik. With your own intelligence or reading so many tikas, so many commentaries, you cannot understand. There's one nice pastime in the life of Ramanujacharya. He had many disciples, and whenever he was giving class, there were these scholarly disciples who sit down there and they'll really listen and they can understand what Ramanujacharya was saying. And he had one assistant who was a very simple village boy, not much scriptural knowledge. You're smiling, I thought you knew the past. So this young this village boy who's not educated, he'd always attend the class. That particular day, he wasn't in the class, and Ramanujacharya wasn't starting. And the disciples, they were asking, Maharaj, we're all here. Why don't you start speaking? And no, I'm waiting for this devotee. What's the point of waiting for him? He's illiterate. He's not going to understand. You start, he'll come and he can sit later. Then Maharaj said, no, I won't start till he comes. So they sent someone to look for him. So this person, this assistant, he was washing Maharaj's clothes in the river. This devotee came and he said, oh, what are you doing here? He said, I'm washing Maharaj's clothes. He said, no, come quickly to the class. He said, why? He said, no, Maharaj won't start unless you come. So he went for the class. He sat down. And to everyone's surprise, Ramanujacharya got off the Vyasasana and he asked his servant to sit on the Vyasasana and start speaking. Everyone is shocked. This is an illiterate boy. He doesn't know, he can't quote any scriptures. But when he sat on the Vyasasad, he spoke perfectly. He continued exactly where Ramanujacharya left off the day, just by serving the Lord Spiritual Master. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayati. Even a mute person can speak eloquently. A lame person can climb a mountain. So that was just something about how King, or the time Prince Priyavata, became completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness by serving the spiritual master Narada Muni. So how, when he started serving, how did he become? What are his activities? What is the characteristics of one who becomes completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness? Here it's described that he's always engaged in discussing spiritual subject matters and did not divert his attention to anything else. And Prabhupada describes how the highest stage of chanting Hare Krishna is when you're completely absorbed, when you're chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Automatically Krishna's pastimes come to our mind. At the moment when you're chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, what comes to our mind? Many things come to our mind. The whole list of things, what to do today, what to cook, all the chores lined up. Sorry, bro. What's for prasad? What's for breakfast after the kitchen? Saturday we know, but other days. So many things come into our mind. And then, different ways of japa workshops and trying to perfect our chanting. So at the stage of chanting, we don't need to think, this doesn't come naturally. We don't have to force ourselves. So it's described when we're chanting Hare Krishna now, all we need to do is just chant loudly and hear as we're chanting. Then when you get more than 2-3 senses engaged, then your mind becomes. Even then the mind keeps going and we got to keep bringing it back. The highest stage of absorption when we chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, automatically Krishna's name, form, pastimes, they become revealed. We don't have to make an endeavor, they just start appearing in our mind. That's called Brahma Satra. We understand in Bhagavad Gita there's this verse, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Ekeha Kurunandana. This is how one should have this one-pointed endeavor in trying to remember Krishna. And remembering Krishna and remembering the instructions of Krishna, the instructions of the spiritual master are non-different. Somebody asked Prabhupada once, Prabhupada, when I'm chanting Hare Krishna mantra, I'm not remembering Krishna, I'm remembering you. Good, fine. So that is how Prince Priyavata was doing his devotional service, how he became absorbed. He had one-pointed attention. And this particular verse was very special to Prabhupada because he said he was inspired by this verse, the commentary of this verse by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And being inspired by that sort of prompted him or pushed him to go to the West and spread the message of Krishna consciousness as instructed by his spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta. If I could just read that translation. This is Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. He says, in Bhakti Yoga, one's intelligence becomes single-pointed or fixed in determination. One thinks the instructions of my spiritual master to worship the personality of Godhead by chanting, remembering, serving his feet, and so on are my only sadhana, my only sadhya, my only livelihood. I am unable to give up these instructions either in the stage of practice or in the stage of perfection. They alone are the object of my desire and my only responsibility. Besides them, I can desire no other responsibility, not even in my dream. It is all the same to me whether I feel happy, unhappy, or whether my material existence is eradicated or not. That was that one pointed dedication Prabhupada had. And we find in King Priyavrata's case. And with one pointed attention, it's described here that he was engaging all his senses in the service of the Lord. Vishikeda, Vishikesha Seva. And that's the definition of pure devotional service. The two definitions. First one given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the first verse. Jnana karmadi anavritamana kulena Krishna. And another definition, which is given from Narada Pancharatra, is also Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirbalam hishikena hishike. So that's the highest form of devotional service, engaging all one's senses in serving the senses of Krishna. And when one does that, what happens when he satisfies the senses of Krishna? He becomes completely satisfied himself. So King Priyavrata, he was born as a prince, but he gave up everything and went to the forest because he was getting a higher form of bliss. In Nectar of Devotions described there are three types of ananda, the three types of bliss. One is the ananda from this material world, and then there is Brahmananda, ananda from impersonal liberation, and Bhakti Ananda, the bliss that you get from performing devotional service. So one who is performing devotional service, he experiences higher taste, rasovarjam, rasopya, param drishtva quality. When you get a higher taste, you automatically give up these lower tastes. So he was able to give up his kingdom, being born as a prince. He gave up all that opulence and went to the forest because he experiences higher taste. There's in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, there was this very, from a material point of view, a very poor Brahmana by the name of Kolavecha Sridhar. You all have heard of Kolavecha Sridhar. So he was in so much poverty. Well, he didn't consider, but from a material point of view, he was very poor. He would sell products of banana plant and banana cup, and he'd give half his income towards worship of Ganga. And with the remaining, he would survive. He had a tiny hut, and he had a water pot that was broken, an iron water pot in his house, and it had a small roof with a hole in the roof. When it rains, the water would just come in. He was leading a very, very simple life. And Mahaprabhu would go every day and want to purchase something from him. So Mahaprabhu would only eat from the banana leaf cup that Kolavecha Sridhar would put. So they always haggle. Mahaprabhu would always want to buy something, but there's a long pastime of how he's always haggling. He's saying, oh no, you're charging too much. And Kolavecha Sridhar would say, go to the next shop. If they're charging cheaper, buy from there. Why do you want to buy from me? And they'll haggle. He'll bring the price down to half, to very little. And then after agreeing on the price, he'll take the things and say, okay, I'll pay you next time. So like this, it'll keep happening. And throughout the whole night, he'll be chanting Hare Krishna. And the neighbors would think, oh, he's so poor, he's hungry, so he's crying at night because he's out of hunger. But he was experiencing so much bliss, even though he had such an impoverishment, because he's having a higher taste. He's not interested in increasing, like getting more wealth, charging more for his banana product. So in the Mahaprakash Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually sent someone specifically to call Kolavecha Sridhar. He was giving out benediction. So he asked someone to go and bring Kolavecha Sridhar, and Kolavecha Sridhar came. And then he asked Kolavecha Sridhar, what would you like? I can give you the Ashta Siddhis that you can get from performing yoga. Kolavecha. He said, I can give you impersonal liberation. So what is it that you want? He said, I just want that birth after birth, I'll be this banana seller and you'll be the Lord and you'll come and you'll haggle with me every day. And I just want to hold on to your lotus feet, birth after birth. So that's the kind of bliss that devotees are experiencing from practicing devotional service. And when you have that kind of bliss, the material ananda is nothing. It's very easy to give up. So for a prince like Priyavata, because of his absorption, he could easily give up his opulence. So there's many more things to be said about regarding this bliss that one experiences. This guy Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. This process it's not the bliss is such that it's like an ocean, Ambuddhi, and Vardhanam is ever increasing. So even when we practice devotional service, we should the first stage it says Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. We should get some kind of bliss as we start practicing devotion. So it may not last long, but we can share some glimpses of this. And Prabhupada also used to ask sometimes some devotees who look morose and say, why are you looking sad? Are you too much service? Or, the devotees should always be happy. This process is very joyfully performed. Anyway, so we understand that he was completely absorbed. And while he was absorbed like this, his father came and his father made this proposition. He said, look, we don't have a suitable king. Can you please take up this post? So his spiritual master is Narada Muni, who is also a Mahajan. His father, Manu, he is also a Mahajan. He's so fortunate. He's so many Mahajans in his life. And father's words cannot be disobeyed, but he very politely, he did not welcome it. So he didn't argue with his father, but he didn't welcome it. And he Prabhupada translates it as he very conscientiously raised the question. And what was the question? Why was he reluctant? He was thinking that if he took up this charge of ruling the world, then he would become diverted, because he had Vivasayatmika buddhi. He didn't want to be diverted from the practice of devotional. And he had practiced devotional service for such a long time, but he was not overconfident. He was like, okay, give it to me. I'm practicing for so many years. Right? Because he had developed a higher taste. He was experiencing, we described as bhakti ananda, the bliss of performing devotional service. He had already understood the goal of life. And taking up this position that his father was proposing would mean engaging in material activities. So one has experienced a higher taste. He's not going to be interested in this. Jamunacharya, he describes, Yad avadin mama cheta Krishna padara vinde nava nava rasa. Once my mind has become attached to the lotus feet of Krishna, I am experiencing nava nava rasa, newer and newer kind of bliss. Such that when I think of the highest, what is the highest bliss that you get in the material world? The highest bliss is sex attraction. And he says, when I think about this, I spit at that thought. My lips curl up in disgust, because he is experiencing higher and higher bliss. So this is every materialist dream. If someone said you can become the king of the whole world, better than striking lottery. That's what every materialist wants. And even devotees, as you're practicing, we haven't completely given up material desires. We still have many material desires that the surface, on and off. And sometimes it's not gross, it's subtle, name, fame, adoration. All these material desires are always there. So we can understand, even though he was such a elevated devotee, he was experiencing bliss. He was not interested in these material activities. And when this proposition came up, he was very, very careful, because the goal was devotional service. He didn't want to be derailed from it. it's something for us to also just remind ourselves. So this human birth is very rare. Durlabham Manusya Janma. Even more rare than that is coming in touch with the pure devotee of the Lord and engaging in devotional service. So it's such a valuable thing. We have to sort of think whenever situations arise, whenever something happens or there's some opportunity to do some activity, we need to analyze and see if that is going to be, that's going to jeopardize our devotional service. We've spent many years trying to do some sadhana, and we don't want to become overconfident, thinking that I can do that. I can go out and watch a movie, or I can go out to that restaurant, or whatever. It's something we can say, oh, no, it's okay. I've done bhakti for a long time. I can sort of, I won't be affected. So that's, Prabhupada said, he said, one thing, the problem is you're not so much afraid of Maya. You're not that much afraid of Maya. You're too overconfident. Us telling her. So we cannot be overconfident. Even King Priyavrata at that stage, he is very careful about this proposition. And throughout our life, or in our material life, we're going to have so many opportunities to do things, and we always have to analyze, is this going to be detrimental to my devotion? This is something so rare, you don't want to spoil it by just giving in or being so overconfident. But we described from the previous verses, we naturally will give in to temptation sometimes, and will become affected by Maya, but there's no loss or diminution in this service if we pick ourselves up and we have patience that eventually will come to a point where we'll be in the tug of war between us and Maya, we'll win. Right. So after this, Brahma himself came to convince King Priyavrata. Brahma was his Narada Muni's spiritual master, Param Guru. He came and he described the next few verses. We'll see how Brahma convinces King Priyavrata. And finally, the main point was this was not anyone's desire. It was not a material desire of anyone. This was eventually it was Krishna's desire. Originally, it was Krishna's desire that King Priyavrata becomes king. Prince Priyavrata becomes the king. So Brahma tells him this. He said, actually, it's not me. It's Krishna who wants. And that's what the spiritual master does. Spiritual master knows what Krishna's desire is. The spiritual master is not telling us what he wants, what his own desire is. He's telling us he understands what Krishna's plan is, and therefore we should listen and follow the instructions of the spiritual master. And we should understand that the spiritual master will not give instructions that we cannot follow. The point is not when the spiritual master gives instruction, it's not, oh, actually, can I do this? Will I be able to do this? That's not. The question is, how can I do it? How can I fulfill the instruction? Because the Guru is Trikalagya, he knows past, present, future. So he can give instructions, and with the instruction, he gives the mercy to fulfill that instruction. So when Manu Maharaj gave him the instruction, he knew that he'd be able to. He didn't give this instruction to him at the beginning. At the beginning, he said, you go do devotional service, you go to the forest. So similarly, a spiritual master will give us instructions at different stage of our life. So at the beginning, he might give you a particular instruction. As time goes on, the instruction changes. It's not we just stuck to it. No, you gave me that first instruction. I'm only going to do that. I'm not going to. The spiritual master knows what's best for us. And he gives you that instruction. He knows that you'll be able to fulfill. Many different, throughout the life of Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's disciples, you could see how they had completely surrendered to the instructions of spiritual master. And instructions that were not sometimes unimaginable. You didn't think you'd be able to do that. Right? Like printing Chaitanya Charitamrita within a short period of time. So that Prabhupada's disciples always yes, how can I fulfill that instruction? There's no doubt about it. It's not like, oh, can you give me another instruction instead? This one seems a bit too difficult. You did people who had no idea about how to publish, and he was given instruction of publishing books. It's like there's so many different instructions are given, and we just accept instructions in spirituality, how we can do it. There's just one particular pastime came to mind, and why it was many wonderful Prabhupada's disciples have done many wonderful things. This particular one, I don't know why it just came to my mind yesterday evening. So there was this Patri Prabhu from Nepal, he mentioned this one. So there was Burijan Prabhu. He had just gone to Hong Kong at that time. And there's this Mataji, Jagatarani Mataji, she was in America. I'm just paraphrasing, I can't remember the exact details. So she had gone up to Prabhupada and told Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I'd like to get married. Can you find me a suitable boy? And Prabhupada said, okay, there's this boy in Hong Kong. His name is Burijan Prabhu. So you go there and you tell him Prabhupada asked me to get married to you. So she just got on a flight, got the address, went to the apartment where Burijan Prabhu was staying, knocked on the door, opened the door. And she said, Prabhupada sent me here, he wanted me to get married to you. I just followed the instructions. What kind of boy is he? What is he? How much does he earn? Nothing. It was but the Guru does not give any instructions that disciples cannot follow. So to see how to read. In Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he gave the instruction of Prabhupada, which is the mammoth task, and describes a lifetime of preparation. He was not saying, can I do it? There's no doubt. He said, I will do it, but I'll prepare. And how can I do it? And prepare myself for that. And then we'll see as the chapter progresses, Prince Priyavrata became the king. And he was engaged in lots of material activities. And finally, he returned back to the spiritual world. So the other part of this purport, or Prabhupada describes, how does one who is absorbed in Krishna consciousness, how does he interact with the material world? Which is very relevant to us. We're all trying to practice Krishna consciousness, and we find ourselves in the material world having to navigate all sorts of different relationships and different activities. So how does a devotee deal with the material world and our material family? So here Prabhupada explains that he deals externally without being too attached to the material family. So it's not that we don't have any affection. We have affection for the children, for the wife, but at the same time, not to become too overly attached. So we do our duty. He says you have to look after the children, you have to provide for them, you have to provide an education. So you can't run a family without any affection, or even some amount of attachment. You have to have, without affection, you can't run a family. So you have to have affection, but we're not overly attached. So Prabhupada once, and I think in the early times of the movement, devotees would start, they hear about vairagya, renunciation, and they want to leave their family or ditch their family. So once one devotee came and asked Prabhupada, so with devotional service, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach two things: pure devotional service. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya explains this: Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Diksha Tameka Purusha Purana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sariradhari Kripam Buddhiryas Tamaham Prapadye. He offers his obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came to teach two things: Nija Bhakti Yoga, pure devotional service, and together with pure devotional service automatically comes renunciation. As you develop attraction to Krishna, you automatically start renouncing things that are material. So at that time, one devotee came to Prabhupada and told Prabhupada, I've developed vairagya. Okay, so what do you want to do? I want to take sannyas. Okay. He said, you have a family, you have a child, you have a wife. Who will look after them? So, no, Prabhupada, but I've developed vairagya. Okay. And so do one thing. You go back home, you live with your wife and your child, but you don't think that your child and your wife are for your enjoyment. They're not for giving you sense enjoyment. They are for giving Krishna sense enjoyment. Think of them as devotees of Krishna and that you're serving. So then that is real vairagya. It's described, Yasyasti bhakti bhagavati akinchana sarve gune tatra samasati sudha. One who performs devotional service gradually attains, well, develops all the good qualities of the demigods. And here Prabhupada says, develops the qualities of Krishna. And one of Krishna's qualities is renunciation. Prabhupada talks about how Krishna had 16,000 wives. And each wife of Krishna was extremely beautiful. But he was not attached to any one of those wives. But throughout the day, he was acting as an ideal husband. Narada Muni went to different palaces. He would see Krishna performing all this just exactly like a perfect husband. He'd be engaged in so many activities, but he was not attached. So by performing devotional service, slowly that detachment will come. There's a nice pastime about how Krishna is considered eternal brahmachari. Interesting times of that. Another time. So Prabhupada gave that advice to that devotee. The real vairagya means go back home, be with your wife and your child, but don't consider them objects of your sense pleasure. Think of them as devotees of Krishna. Prabhupada, in one letter to Satsvarup Das Goswami, he wrote, Acharya Bhaktivinoda Thakur was perfect householder and we should take his example. How nice a householder he was, how nice children he produced. One of them is my Guru Maharaj. This is the example, so follow it and become successful in Krishna consciousness. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote many bhajans. So in Sharanagati, he wrote one bhajan that Prabhupada has quoted. And this teaches us, it gives us it summarizes how we should deal with material life and a material family. So I'll just read the translation. So, O Lord, nothing further remains that may be called mine. Father, friend, brother, you alone are all this to me. My friends, wife, sons, and daughters are now your servants, your maid servants. Whatever care I take for them is only because they are related to you. My wealth, my family members, my home, they are actually yours, and I am just a caretaker. For the purpose of your service, the service of your devotees, the wife, the children, they're all your devotees. So for their service, I will go out, I will earn money and maintain them. Whether anything good or bad happens, I will just continue rendering service because I am basically just a watchman in this house. You are the actual owner. And I will exercise all my senses according to your desire. I will hear, see, smell, and taste according to your desire. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, your pleasure is the essence of everything, and I no longer do anything for my own pleasure. So material family, the material world is not the impediment. The impediment is our attachment to it. If we look at it in the right frame of mind, in relation to Krishna, putting Krishna at the center, then material world and family life isn't an impediment. There are many of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. There are many wonderful examples of how one can lead a perfect family life without attachment. Even so much opulence. Many devotees in his pastimes. In the interest of time, maybe we could just discuss one devotee by the name of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. There are many others, Ramananda Rai, Jivananda Sen, Raghunath Das Thakur, Raghunath Das Goswami, Dvaitacharya. So many wonderful devotees who are grihasthas and some who are so much opulent, who are really wealthy, and how they were completely unattached to their wealth and their family. So Pundarik Vidyanidhi, he was a extremely wealthy landowner from currently Bangladesh, Chottagram, Chittagong. And he moved to Navadvip, to Jagannath Puri. And Mukunda, he used to serve all these great devotees who would visit. So whenever someone exalted came, Mukunda would know about it. And once he brought Gadadhar, he told Gadadhar Pandit, look, there's this great devotee, great Vaishnava. Why don't you come with me? We'll go and have his audience. So he went to Pundarik Vidyanidhi's house. And Pundarik Vidyanidhi, he was just rolling in opulence. He was sitting in a beautiful throne with white and satin covers. He's wearing silken robes. He's chewing pan. And he had golden spittoons, the two ladies holding the spittoon for him to spit. Then he had two ladies with a peacock fan fanning him. So much opulence. He lived like he was in a palace. And Gadadhar Pandit, in his mind, he was thinking, why is Mukunda? He's a bad judge of character. This person doesn't look like a pure devotee. He looks like a materialist, a vishy. Look at how much enjoying his senses, so much opulence. And Mukunda could understand his heart. And he decided he wanted to reveal Pundarik Vidyanidhi's devotion. So he sang a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam describing the mercy of Lord Krishna. Aho bakiyam stanakalakutam jigyam sayapaya yadapi siddhadvi lebhe gatim da trichitam tatonyam kamba dayalum sharanam rajema. He says, who else can be as merciful as Krishna, who gave as demon Putana, who came to kill Krishna. He poisoned a breast and was trying to feed Krishna milk to kill Krishna. But to that person, to that demon, Krishna gave her the position of a mother, a nurse, Datri Mata. Who else can be so merciful? And when he heard this, we all heard this verse. Anyone rolling around on the ground, carrying their clothes. But Pundarik Vidyanidhi, when he heard this, he started ripping those silken clothes. He was thrashing around. He threw the golden spittoon. He broke the chair. He broke everything around him. Like a madman, he's rolling on the floor. And Gadadhar Pandit could understand that. That's great. He had no attachment to we had a nice new car and there was a scratch in the car. How much? Absolutely no attachment to that. That's Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So many other devotees, Mahaprabhu's pastime. It's described. Raghunath Das Goswami, again, it's a long pastime, but Mahaprabhu gave him one instruction when he kept trying to run away from home. He tried renouncing his most beautiful wife. He described he had the wealth of Indra, and she was beautiful as a heavenly damsel. And all this couldn't bind him, and he kept trying to run away to go to Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu gave him one instruction, which is quite relevant for us. He says, Antare nishta karo bhai loka vyavahar achirat Krishna tomai kori bhe udar. Says, Antare nishta karo, in your heart, always think of Krishna, meditate on Krishna. But outside, bhai loka vyavahar, outside act like Prabhupada says, pounds and shilling man. just deal with outside people like as if you're attached to them, as if externally you do everything that you need. Perfect father, perfect husband. But inside, always remember that your goal is develop your love. And to describe Mahaprabhu's Leelas, you find everyone has got so much renunciation. It's described Mahapurure Bhaktagane Vairagya Pradhan Yaha Deki Pritahana Gaura Bhagavan. This renunciation is the basic principle sustaining the lives of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu devotees. And seeing this renunciation, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu becomes very satisfied. So if we want to develop this renunciation, we follow in the footsteps of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's followers, spiritual master, perform devotional service under their guidance, and automatically as we do Bhakti Yoga, Vairagya Vidya will come. And then we can also, as Prabhupada describes, we can have Brahma Satra, always meditating upon the Supreme Lord. And that's the perfection of our lives. At the time Ante Narayana Smriti, always meditate on Krishna. At the time of life, we leave our body to remember Krishna, or Krishna remembers us, and the perfection of our life. Hare Krishna, so many things to meditate upon in this verse. Does anyone like to share some realizations, comments, corrections? If there are any questions, we can attempt. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Prabhupada, Vancha Kalpataru Kripa Sindhu, Chaitanya Prabhu, Vaishnavi Namo.